It's 105.9, 89.7 WNKU. I'm Liz Felix, and joined by Covington, Kentucky native guitar player Adrian Belew is on the phone. Adrian, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about David Bowie.
I'm glad to be able to talk with you. Thank you.
I'm wondering if you can tell me how you met David Bowie. You played on the record Lodger, you were on Heroes, and I believe you were on tour with Bowie for a while as well. How did you guys initially meet?
When I first went on tour with Frank Zappa to Europe, that was my first tour of Europe ever. We played in Germany, and David came to the show, and I didn't know he was there, but there was a break in the show where Frank would take a solo, and I would leave the stage for a few minutes. And so as I was walking off the stage, I looked over and saw at the mixing board there was David Bowie and Iggy Pop.
Wow.
So I walked over, shook hands with David, and told him, thank you for the music and how much I'd loved his music. And he said, great, how would you like to be in my band?
Wow.
And so that's how it happened. He actually asked me to be in his band right there on stage that night.
That's amazing.
I did end up doing two tours with him, one in 1978 and 79, and then a much bigger tour in 1990 when I was the music director for his Sound and Vision tour that went to 27 countries, 108 shows, and an incredible experience, of course, all of those things.
Absolutely. Did you become friendly with him? Was it like a friendship in addition to a working relationship?
Absolutely, especially in the 1990 tour. We were together for 10 straight months, on planes and in buses and cars and having dinners and, of course, on stage and going out on our days off to museums and doing things. So, yeah, we got to be very close in the 1990 tour, and David was an easy person to love because he was, as a person, he was funny, very informative, very smart, knew a lot of things, and it was interested in a lot of things. He was a very curious-minded person. So, and once he knew something, he kind of got involved with, he would know everything about it. So,
right.
A great person to have conversations with.
He does seem like he was, obviously we're really focusing on his music today, but certainly a multi-talented person who kind of reached into a lot of different art forms. And so it seems like he did have quite a bit of knowledge across different forms of art.
Yeah, he was one of those people who was always curious, so he would usually be the first one to know about something new. And he was a master creative person at being able to take different things and make them his own or combine them in new ways. And obviously he was one of those artists. Very few artists can change colors so often as David did. And the thing I loved about him the most was that he could do all of those things and be very creative and unique and still be hugely famous and popular and well-loved. He's one of the very few artists able to do that.
I was speaking about that idea with Freak Bass, who's a bass player here in Cincinnati. This idea that, David Bowie was really pushing a lot of boundaries musically. A lot of his songs are very interesting, unusual time signatures, unusual instrumentation, and yet they still would be like these huge pop hits. Did you find that to be the case when you were working with him?
Yes, of course. The 1990 tour that we did, the entire show was made up of his hit songs. It was supposed to be the last time he was going to perform them live. So we did something like 35 Bowie songs that everybody in the audience knew quite well. And usually those audiences were people in a full stadium somewhere.
Yeah. Are there any stories looking back on your time with David Bowie? Maybe do you have like a favorite memory or something that you want to share with us?
Well, when we were going to go out on the 1990 tour, I was just finishing up a solo record of mine called Young Lions, and we thought it would be good if David could take part in my record. So he said, "Hey, I've got a song called Pretty Pink Rose, and here, I'll give it to you, and you can do what you want with it, and then we'll sing it together." So I recorded all the music myself, like I usually do on solo records, and went to New York City and went in the studio with David. And I looked up at one point and realized on the other side of the microphone, there was David Bowie, and I was on one side, he was on the other, and we were both singing a song together. And that was, I don't know, kind of one of those moments where everything just stops and you realize, wow, this is real.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And later, of course, we made a wonderful video for that, which I'm very happy that we were able to do all that. I have so many things, that I could tell stories forever and ever, and it's hard to come up with anecdotes because there's just so many of them. But, the strange thing was to be around David, even though he was a massive superstar, and people would just flip out just to be around him for a moment. If you knew him and you were with him all the time, you would see, he was just a really great person, very generous and very funny. We had so many laughs, and it sort of demystified the whole thing in some degree, but on another level, I mean, he was a superstar, and I always felt like I was on a different planet.
Right. But that's such a cool experience for you, and I'm glad that you got to have that friendship with him. And we really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us here at WNKU. It's Adrian Belew, the Covington, Kentucky native and guitar player who worked with David Bowie. And I guess I just want to say that I'm sorry for your loss today. I'm sure it's been kind of a long day. A lot of people wanting to ask you about your friendship with David Bowie, but we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show, and of course, it's a great loss for the entire world.
Absolutely.
We do have his music, so we can still enjoy that. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Adrian Belew on WNKU.